The much-awaited Nordic Summit is here. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be meeting the leaders of Norway, Sweden, the biggest country of them all, Finland, Denmark and Iceland. And with me is Klas Molin, the Swedish Ambassador, on his way to Copenhagen. Your Excellency, very big moment. There's been one Nordic Summit and there's another one. Of course, in between, there's been COVID. What is in store for both sides, for the Nordic countries, small but important, and of course India?
Well, thank you, Srinjoy, for asking the question. I think we're very much looking forward to this second ever Indo-Nordic Summit, a process which was started 4 years ago when Prime Minister Modi came to Stockholm for both an extensive bilateral program as well as the first Indo-Nordic Summit. It was something that had been going on discussions that had been going on for some time. And I think the quick answer to what's in store is more cooperation, more and better cooperation, and something that's very much in both the Nordic countries' interest and, I dare say, India's, since we feel we have such an interested and dynamic partner in India. We're very gratified that this is happening. I think it would have come about earlier had not COVID happened. There's no set interval for these summits, but 4 years is a long time. A lot has happened. Clearly, we've cooperated very, very closely throughout the pandemic on health issues, on vaccines. AstraZeneca, as you know, is been very involved, and with the Serum Institute here in India, etc. There's been great cooperation. And many other things have happened as well, of course. But now we're set to continue the cooperation, kicked off very much at the behest and at the clear indication of interest from the Indian side. And we are very gratified that it's taking place. And I think it also comes as, you know, with the backdrop of increased cooperation and relations, deeper and more solid relations between India and all of Europe.
Economic cooperation surely would be a very important pillar of this meeting. And which are the areas that the Nordic countries and India will work together on as far as economic cooperation is concerned? And this particularly relates to these new technologies that are coming up.
Absolutely. And I think we all offer, all five, and normally I don't speak on their behalf, but here I think it's fair to say that we all have very advanced economies. They're not huge, but taken together, the five economies as such would easily qualify as a G20 country and economy. So it's not negligible. It's not that there is very advanced technology in certain areas. You could look at various green technologies, waste to energy, solar, wind, etc. The digital revolution, which is happening here for sure, is also happening very much in tandem with interested companies, research institutions, universities, etc. in our countries. In Sweden, we've seen the Indian diaspora. It's the fastest growing group of any country outside the EU, and we have a huge demand continuing for trained programmers and IT professionals, a group that Prime Minister Modi met, many of whom he met when he came to Sweden 4 years ago, and this has just continued. There's also telecom. Sweden has had a very strong footprint in India for decades, and
even defense,
as I think you know.
Defense and Make in India would be an issue, surely.
Perhaps in the bilateral. Other than the summit, there are also individual bilateral discussions between Prime Minister Modi and the five prime ministers of the Nordic countries. And a number of issues, I'm sure. Although the meetings are short, very succinct, I'm sure a whole host of issues will come up. And of course, Sweden has been cooperating on defense issues for a long time. Saab has a very strong presence in India and is slated to grow that presence also.
Which brings us to the political situation and Ukraine particularly. The Nordic countries have a completely different view on the Ukrainian situation from India. Norway, Iceland, and Denmark are already NATO countries. Sweden and Finland are about to join NATO. What is likely to be discussed on Ukraine and other political issues?
I think Ukraine has been discussed very thoroughly everywhere in the last 2 months, obviously, or 2 months plus now. The Raisina dialogue was just very successfully hosted by India in the last few days, this past week, and a number of European leaders, foreign ministers, but also the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, was here as the chief guest. And I think the European positions have been clearly ironed out and also spelled out. I'm not sure that the positions are so different. There are different concerns, and they're well known on both sides. So naturally, Ukraine will come up, and it will be discussed between the leaders. I think the positions are fairly well, even very well known at the moment. And it's a chance to talk between our leaders with the leader of the world's largest democracy, clearly with a growing interest and growing influence in this part of the world, as well as globally, historically, as a very influential and very important voice on the international stage. So clearly, the leaders will listen very carefully to Prime Minister Modi. I think, again, as I started saying, positions are well known. You say that Sweden and Finland are slated to join NATO. There's a process in both countries. It's clear for anyone to see that there is a very vivid discussion going on, slightly different from in the two countries. And in Finland, they've already had a parliamentary discussion. In Sweden, there is a discussion outside of parliament, but with all the parties represented in the Swedish Riksdag and the Swedish Parliament represented, led by the foreign minister. There's also a discussion in the Social Democratic Party, which forms a minority government at the moment. And when all this is said and done in a few weeks, because it's a process that is going fairly quickly, very quickly even, we'll see where that takes us. So it's a little premature to say that we're slated, but stay tuned and follow what is a very important discussion, which of course has started and picked up the pace in a very unexpected way, preempted, that came about very much because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I don't think we would have been here just yet had that not happened in the way it did. And this, of course, is well known, but will be restated, I'm sure, at the meetings.
Green technology, that seems to be an area where both sides seem very keen on. Both sides want significant forward movement as far as green technology cooperation is concerned. How is this going to happen?
Well, clearly it's the way of the world, it's the future. And we bring different fortes. Again, I'm addressing the 5 Nordic countries and what we can bring to the table. We've been here a long time. I started saying this, that Swedish manufacturing companies, and lately in the last, if you look the last few decades, perhaps more and more services, smart solutions, we have incubation centers, we have a lot of startups taking off in cooperation with Indian inventors and people in places like Pune, in Hyderabad, in Bangalore, etc. And very exciting here in Delhi, of course, both in Noida and in just outside in other areas in Gurgaon. And this is slated to continue. And as I think I said in the beginning of the interview, we bring slightly different expertise and slightly different experiences, the 5 countries, to India. Waste to energy is something we've dealt with a lot. Denmark has a lot of experience already in wind power. We have hydro in Sweden. We depend heavily on hydro. And we're all 5 of us, trying to move away as much as possible from fossil, with very ambitious goals, as I'm sure you know. The EU as such, Norway and Iceland are not members of the EU, but Europeans in general European governments have very ambitious goals. And this is clearly something that will be discussed here also. How can we together cooperate? Sweden and India have been chairing something called the Lead It, the Leadership Group for Industry Transition, where we look very closely, something that was initiated by the Secretary General of the UN. We look very closely at heavily polluting industries first, cement, steel, etc., but also aviation. How can we attract these companies' attention? How can we help them also? Because I think the demand from consumers, from other companies, business to business, but definitely the consumer level, there's increasing demand for smart, new, and green solutions. So I think we do a lot individually with India. Perhaps there's also scope here, and I think the discussions I've been having here in India recently tell me that perhaps India and the Indian government is also interested at seeing what we can do together as a group with India, individually for sure, continuously, but also as the Nordic countries in India. A great partnership.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you.